Namaskar, good evening. In this presentation, we will take a look at a concept that will be of use to you not just in the prelims examination, but also you are looking at use for it in the paper 3 of general studies in mains, and as well as exploring the ethical connotation to it. So obviously you will be using this concept too in the paper 4, that is the ethics paper. So welcome to this special session. My name is Bhuvan for StudyIQ IAS English. As in this presentation, we will take a look at the nature of predatory loan apps in India. How are they different from the traditional method of lending that is followed? What are the traps that an unsuspecting consumer or a borrower lands himself or herself into? And what are the possible remedies that you are looking at in terms of, say, consumer awareness or making sure that the interest of the borrower is safeguarded? We will also take a look at the guidelines that have been issued, in fact, by the Reserve Bank of India insofar as protecting those aforementioned interests that I just laid down before you. So this is an important session that is planned ahead for you. So in the next 15 minutes, we'll take an overview of all of these issues. And in particular, we'll explore and understand the topic of predatory loan apps in the Indian financial markets. Good evening, all of you. Good evening, Bulbul, Deepak Manloi, Coder SD. Thank you so much once again, guys, for joining me this evening. Let's get started with this discussion. So once again, before I start the discussion, this is my Telegram channel. Go ahead and join this. And you will find it to be of most use to you as the first information for my morning sessions, the daily news analysis that goes by the name of Editorial Edge. Well, you find all the PDFs uploaded here, questions uploaded here, the mains analysis provided here, and we are looking at it as a platform for continued learning and engagement between the student and myself. So once again, I would implore all of you, go ahead and join this particular Telegram channel. Right, let's go forward. So if you were to just look at, say, the particular headlines that when you explore, you find that it is a pan-India problem, the predatory loan apps. And thereafter, what happens when people get trapped into these loan apps, right? So you're looking at cases across the country, from the north to the south, to the east, to the west. This is, in fact, an ubiquitous problem, a problem that is stretching the length and breadth of the country. Now, what does this tell you? Because this is a pan-India problem, straight away we can realize that this is attributed to, say, the cheaper data plans, the cheaper mobile phones. All of this has served to put a substantial part of India's population on the digital map and thus have exposed themselves to the nefarious, unscrupulous practices that are being propagated on these platforms, right? Good evening once again, Ash J, Arun Kannan. Thank you so much for your joining and thanks for your feedback, Ash J. Thank you so much. So going forward, well, let's look at the digital lending scheme or the structure in India that is in place currently. So what you're looking at? Well, lending through web platforms or mobile apps. So you do have the traditional lenders, the conventional lenders, the banks, which have, say, a tie-up with a particular NBFC or a payment bank that has a tie-up with a particular non-banking financial institution. Well, that is the conventional method of lending. However, what you find of late, especially after the coronavirus pandemic and the ensuing lockdown, is that there is a proliferation of these easy loan apps. These loan apps will promise you huge amounts of money without any particular paperwork or credential check, no KYC or Aadhaar verification. And thereafter what you find is that all you need to give them in return is access to your data. Now you might think that your data is probably not of much use, and so you go ahead, give all those accesses, you have the money come in your account, you are happy that you have not had the whole problem of going through the hassle framework of the conventional lending. However, what you do not realize is that you have just landed yourself in a huge mess, a huge trap. And so what happens is that these particular loan apps, easy loans in minutes, no hassle work is what they promise you. Well, that lands you in a direct trap, and how? We will explore that in the course of this presentation. But before we do so, it's important for us to quickly figure out the stakeholders of this problem. Because once we identify who are the stakeholders of this problem, then we can go ahead and probably give a course correction, a particular strategy for each of them to come up with solutions to combat this problem. So once again, let's go forward. And what you see is the stakeholders here. First stakeholder, the most important stakeholder of this is you, the consumer, the borrower. The second stakeholder is this particular agency, this fraudulent loan app that is promising you cheap and easy loans in minutes. The third stakeholder is the hosting service, the Play Store or the App Store from where you download that particular app and then access that particular funding mechanism. And finally, one of the key stakeholders of this whole issue is the government. Now, once you've figured out that these are my primary stakeholders in this conversation, well, it becomes easy to narrow down the problem now. So let's go forward and have a look at the modus operandi. How do these fake loan apps operate? Well, first up, a consumer is lured in with the promises of easy and hassle-free loans. In fact, what happens is you go ahead and sign up for one of these loans. Immediately, in the next 48 to 72 hours, you are bombarded with at least 20 to 30 more of such offers saying that, well, because your credentials mind you, are now verified, well, you are eligible for more such loans. You think, well, oh my God, I have really done well here. And so you go ahead and sign up for more of such loans. Bear in mind, no verification, no antecedent check, no CIBIL score verification so far. Once you have signed up for these exorbitant loans, what happens is the rate of interest that is quoted to you is often misrepresented. In the end, you end up paying up to 50 to 200% rate of interest on the sum that you have borrowed. Obviously, it becomes near impossible for a person to pay off the entire loan. In fact, pay off the principal amount, forget paying off the entire loan. Which is why you go ahead and get more of such loans to pay back the preceding loans, the loans that you have already taken. Herein, you have landed yourself in a vicious debt trap. This is the problem, guys. Now, if this wasn't enough, the loan recovery process will send shivers down your spine. Since you have given all those permissions, location access to your image gallery, your video gallery, your call history, your phone records, your contact list, all of that is now with this third party. And so once you default on your loans or you have delayed in paying back your loans, what you find is that your photos are now morphed and then sent across your contact list. Calls are made to your people in the contact list in an effort to bring pressure onto you, the pressure of social stigma, if I might add, so as to coerce the individual to pay back these exorbitant rate of interests that are charged by these companies. Now, bear in mind again that these companies do not have any physical location within the country. Most of the time, they are based offshore, operate with crypto accounts, multiple IP addresses, and thus it becomes near impossible to track these companies. Thus, straight away you realize the magnitude of the problem, that because of, say, financial exclusion due to whichever reasons, however, digital inclusion, therein is the mismatch. That a large segment of the population are unaware or probably do not have access to such conventional banking services in spite of having a digital presence. So let's go forward. This is what happens. Once you give ahead and give the permissions, well, straight away you are in a tap, unethical, illegal recovery practices in an effort to coerce the borrower. Now, once you have realized this, that well, the borrower is in hook, line and sinker, well, what happens next? How do you go ahead and track these particular companies? Like I told you, you cannot track them. They do not have any physical location within the country. And more often than not, you must have read that the government has gone ahead and banned, say, n number of apps. Or that Play Store or App Store has gone ahead and removed n number of apps who were operating under this particular identity. However, as students, we must also realize that for 10 apps that are banned, thousands mushroom the very next day. That app a day problem keeps compounding, keeps growing up. So once again, what you find is that more apps keep getting added to Play Store and App Store on a regular basis in spite of all the action that is taken by the central government and the state governments. You also find that all the money is siphoned off through offshore accounts, through IP addresses, through this particular network, this web that is created in an effort to make sure that none of that can be traced out to a particular individual. In fact, most of the people who work for these companies are unaware that they're working for such a company. Bear in mind that after coronavirus pandemic, work from home has now become a reality for many sectors. So these companies use this particular trap, this work from home lacuna, to have a large segment of population working from them who wouldn't even know that they are working for such a fraudulent company. Right? Again, no physical verification and misrepresenting to the own employees, exploiting the work from home culture. And finally, the problem is added because of underreporting of cases, that people would choose to suffer in silence rather than go ahead and report it to the authorities, a purely illegal and unethical practices that is being carried across the country. So once you have realized the magnitude of the problem, well, what do the RBI guidelines say? Well, in fact, the RBI has been very proactive in this regard. RBI has in fact issued white lists of safe apps on its website. It has issued guidelines insofar as the conventional and traditional lending mechanism is concerned. Those that are completely designed to safeguard the interests of the borrowers, you, the consumer. But at the same time, now that I have given you the overview of the problem, you must realize that the magnitude of this problem, the problem of proliferation of 1,000+ apps per day that promise easy, hassle-free money, loans in minutes without verification is what they claim. Well, that's a problem that's going to keep compounding. And because of lack of regulation, one might add in this field, well, this adds to the problem, right? So let's go forward and have a look at the options that you as a consumer have. Well, the options are quite clear, quite simple. First and foremost is that you should speak up, that silence again is not an option. That go ahead, if you are a victim of such unscrupulous practices, straight away report it to the cybercrime authorities on cybercrime.gov.in. There is also a dedicated helpline number by the number of 1930 that you can approach to get your problems solved. At the same time, you are looking at reporting such fraudulent apps on the Play Store and the Google Store. In fact, like I told you, that one of the primary stakeholders of this problem are these Play Stores or App Stores, which is why companies like Google and Apple need to be proactive and collaborative with the government in coming up with solutions to tackle this, because again, in isolation, the government will find it difficult. In isolation, the Play Store and App Store will also find it difficult, which is why a collaborative pathway ahead for these two entities specifically designed to protect the interest of the consumer or the borrower is recommended. Alright, you should also understand that you should never give unverified apps permission that they do not deserve. In fact, you should completely be seized of the fact that your data is precious, your privacy is precious, and no amount of money is worth all the hassle that comes after you have signed up with these fraudulent apps. The problem of these fraudulent loan apps can only be tackled through a participatory approach, through a behavioral change, and more importantly, the spread of awareness, the dissemination of information across age segments, across gender segments. Which is why, if you found this video informative, may I request you quickly go ahead and leave me a like, and do share this with your friends and family, as this is a problem that is, as I told you, prevalent right from the north to the south, to the east to the west. In fact, just in our neighboring country Pakistan, the same problem has come up. The Pakistan government taking the same steps that say most other governments are taking, insofar as just limiting their actions to banning these particular apps on the Play Store. But by now you must have realized that if you ban one, hundreds come up the next day, which is why it's important to have a comprehensive strategy to counter this particular problem. An important topic again, not just from the prelims perspective, but more importantly from the GS3 paper in the UPSC mains. I hope this session was informative to you. And if you did, once again, go ahead and leave me a like or leave me a comment. I'd appreciate any sorts of feedback. And do join my official Telegram channel that goes by the name of Bhuvan Study IQ. All right. Thank you for your feedback. Anjali, yes, you're absolutely correct. However, in terms of, say, financial exclusion that we are talking about, well, what you are referring to is of a different realm. But yes, I do agree with your observation. So if there are no more questions, or if you do have any question, go ahead. You can leave a question for me in the comment box. If you have a particular feedback, well, you can leave a feedback for me, good or bad. I'd appreciate both, bouquets and brickbats. So leave that for me in the comment box too. And before I wrap up this brief session, well, let me very quickly inform you that the Prelims to Interview Initiative, the 1-year comprehensive module that is being offered for civil service aspirants for the year 2024 is now closing admissions in the next 48 hours. So go ahead quickly to studyiq.com. Look at the course deliverables, choose the language of your delivery, whether you would be comfortable in Hindi or English or English. Make sure that you use the code BALIVE, as that assures you a substantial discount and also gives me the opportunity to be a part of your preparation. I hope many of you make note of this information and use this opportunity to be a part of this comprehensive 1-year program being offered by StudyIQ IAS as we go ahead in your aim to become a part of the steel frame of India. On that note, it's a wrap as we discussed the predatory loan apps in India, the problems that come with them, the challenges, and how do we go about addressing them. Once again, if it was of informative and of benefit to you, do consider leaving me a like and a comment. Thanks for watching. Good night till I see you tomorrow morning 8 a.m. on the editing.